What's going on, friends? Winter is right around the corner and riding season for a lot of us is starting to wind down. It's getting about that time. Maybe you're about ready to start that project you've been putting off. You want to get in the engine, we want to do a big bore kit, we want to put some cams in it, we want to get some more power out of the motor and be ready to go next spring. But the biggest thing you need to be thinking of before you ever even order any parts is you got to be thinking of, what do I plan on doing with this motorcycle? And not only that, just what kind of bike do I have? Now, the first thing you need to think about is not only what am I going to be doing with the bike, but what are my goals and what kind of bike do I have? Do I have a Dyna? Do I have a Softail? Or do I have a touring bike? It is very important before you order any parts. Even more important, before you actually spend the money and take the time to get the work done, that you are 100% certain of what you're going to use the bike for. What are your goals? Because the worst thing that you can do is spend a bunch of money, pay somebody to put it in, or even taking the time to do it yourself and get the wrong setup. It's not going to make you happy. You're going to feel like everything you did is a waste of money, and essentially it basically is, because you're probably going to break down and go back and redo it all. Guys, please don't forget, if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. Now, what I mean by it is important to know what bike you have and what you're going to do with it is you don't want to take a touring bike and put a cam in it that's really centered around mid-range and top end on these bikes. You're not going to be happy with it. That bike is going to be really sluggish. It's going to be really boring on the bottom end, but hey, once you get it up in the mid-range and the upper RPMs, it's going to run great. The problem is that may not be where you ride. You're usually down low. You're taking them twisty back roads. That's not a lot of fun when you don't have that low-end power that you're looking for. And especially if you choose the wrong parts, like say if you get the wrong cam, you might actually hurt your bottom end from where you were stock, because your cam may have taken all your power out the bottom end and moved it up to the upper and mid-range. Now, I always say when it comes to your motorcycle, you can do absolutely anything you want to it. If you want to put a high torque cam in a Dyna, that's great. You want to put a mid-range to high RPM cam in your touring bike, go for it, if that's the kind of riding you want to do with it. But that's why I say you need to be very certain on what kind of riding are you doing. Are you pulling a passenger? Are you carrying a lot of gear? Maybe you got a touring bike and you're even pulling a trailer. Case in point, I'll get to that later. I had a conversation with a viewer over email. He had this exact same issue. Now, generally when it comes to where you want your power, this is all dictated by the cam. We could put high compression in there. We could put a big bore kit. We could put a set of heads on it. But generally, where the power is delivered, it's really all dependent on the cam. So basically, starting out with the right cam, this is going to set the tone for your entire build. Now, generally when it comes to Dynas, a lot of guys that ride Dynas, they want a cam that is mid-range to high RPM. That works on a Dyna, because Dynas are actually a heck of a lot lighter than the touring bikes, and not having to pull around all that weight, Dynas usually get around pretty dang well on the bottom end without having a big high torque cam in there. And then they sing, they get up in the mid-range and the upper RPM because you're not carrying the weight. Now, Softail guys, little different here. You can really go either way with a Softail depending on the kind of riding that you do and what Softail it is. Now if you ride a Heritage Classic, you may not want to go with a cam that's centered around mid-range and higher RPM. But say if you have a fat boy or something and you like to do some high RPM riding, get her shut down for the corners, because we all know fat boys really don't like to corner too well, you end up scraping the floorboards off. So with Softails, it can really go either way. If you ride one of the smaller, lighter Softails, you might want to go with a cam that can get you a lot of mid-range to high RPM. But on a Softail, in my opinion, it never hurts to get a good high torque cam that still leaves some meat in the mid-range and maybe a little bit in the top end. But generally, high torque cams, they shine on the bottom end, about partway into the mid-range, and then when you start getting up into the mid-range, you start to lose power and they start dropping off. Now, when it comes to touring bikes, and this is a spread of all touring bikes, whether it is a Evo-powered touring bike, twin cam, 88, 96, 103, 110, even a Milwaukee 8, I highly suggest on these bikes that you really try to get a cam that is more centered around the bottom end and the mid-range. A good touring cam will shine where it's supposed to with the high torque, good mid-range, and it'll still leave a little meat on the bone there to get up into higher RPMs without completely falling off. Now, the reason why I say that when it comes to touring bikes, and that was kind of a lot of my inspiration for this video, is I've had a lot of questions about this, and specifically I had a conversation with a viewer. They had an Evo-powered Road King. The guy was riding 2-up, and even occasionally pulling a trailer with his Evo-powered Road King. Now, as we know, Evos make pretty good power as it is, but he already had a good set of heads on it, but he had one issue there. That bike had an EV23 cam in it from Andrews. Nothing wrong with the Andrews EV23 cam. That is an excellent camshaft, great in a Dyna. Just the wrong application for what he was trying to do with this bike. His biggest issue was he really didn't have a lot of bottom end, but when he got into the mid-range and the higher RPMs, the bike ran like a top. But the issue here is that it was not suited for his application. Trying to ride 2-up, trying to pull that trailer occasionally, he didn't have that low-end grunt to get this bike moving. This is a perfect example of why I say you got to be very careful on your cam selection. Now, in his defense, he didn't purchase this cam. He bought the bike like this, so he didn't really get to know really what was in it till he had to open it up, and that's like, okay, aha, now we know what's going on. Good cam, just the wrong application. So trying to pull a trailer, you don't have that grunt. But once you get rolling down the road, you get in that mid and higher RPM, thing runs great. So best thing to do there, take out the EV23, go get an EV27, which is more centered towards the low end and the mid-range and is an excellent all-around cam because it still leaves a lot of meat on the top for the upper RPMs as well. That's going to pull that bike out of the hole better. You're not going to be constantly downshifting and revving the crap out of it, trying to get moving, especially if you pull a trailer with your Harley. So guys, before you tear into your motorcycle this winter and start getting along with some of these projects you've been putting off all summer, saying, yeah, I'm waiting until winter and then I'm going to tear this thing down and I'm going to get all this work done to it, definitely look at what you want to do with the motorcycle. Not only that, pay attention to what cam that you're buying. As I mentioned, Dynas, usually we look for a cam that wants to get you into the mid to higher RPM like an S&S 555. Now, if we go into the touring bikes, we get into something a little bit heavier. Maybe you want a Wood 777 or even a 555, depending on maybe if you're doing a performance bagger build. But really on all around cams when it comes to the baggers, especially the twin cams, TW222 is really hard to beat. And then if you're running a Milwaukee 8 and you just want to go for all-around power, insanity everywhere, WM822XE is still one of the craziest ones out there. But that's the other issue on the other side of the coin when it comes to camshafts, is that we've got to be aware of the valve train noise and just be aware that the more aggressive, even the bolt-in cams, they're going to make the valve train noisier, which that's just kind of something you got to deal with when you want to do a performance build with a bolt-in cam. Well, honestly, any cam for that matter, because you get into the higher lifts, they're going to be a little noisier. Doesn't hurt anything. You're just going to have to get used to it, put a good exhaust on it to kind of drown it out a little bit. So guys, you can do any big bore kit, any head combination. You can do a lot of these nice aftermarket, right off the shelf bolt-on setups, but just remember, everything comes down to the camshaft. You can have high compression, the big bore kit, that good set of heads on there, but if you don't have the right camshaft in there that's suited for what you're trying to do with your motorcycle, you're not going to be happy with it. And the last thing I want you to do is go out and order a bunch of parts, get excited about it, spend that money, take the time to put it in or pay somebody to do it, and then be completely disappointed with it because it's not what you wanted. That is the worst thing in the world that can happen, especially after being down and being out that money, because you can either live with it and just go with it, or you're going to have to spend more money and try to sell the parts that you don't want and buy some more parts, and you get it. It just starts rolling. It starts snowballing on you. I've seen it happen. I hate to see it happen because there's nothing worse than getting a big project done and somebody's not happy with it. Because if they're not happy with it, I'm not happy with it either. But anyhow, guys, let me know in the comments, what are you guys planning on doing with your bikes this winter? Are you getting into the engine? Are you bolting on some accessories? I want to know what your winter plans are with your bikes. What are you going to use with this downtime? But anyhow, guys, that's all I've got for you this week. I appreciate you guys watching. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel. But till next week, guys, you stay safe on the streets, ride smart, dodge those cars, and I'll catch you guys back here next week with a brand new video. Thanks for watching.